Okay, so we are not going to continue on the Menorah stuff that we were doing yesterday, even though there is more Avram and Rambam. I just did not think it would be the best use of our time. But we ended off yesterday kind of wondering what the third Shita is. We had the curved branches and the straight branches, and we had the Ibn Ezra / Sadia Gaon, and we didn't know what it looked like. So someone drew this picture for me and sent it, and this is how I pictured it. But I thought that it was a good depiction here is that you have the central candle, and then you have the other 6 candles arranged in a semicircle. Like Ibn Ezra said, it's like a crown. And the way that you describe it is if you look at it it is like a crown, it's like a tiara, but if you look at it from above, it's in a semicircle instead of a straight line. So there you have like Rashi and the majority of the Mefarshim really all hold that it's in a straight line. And then this would be in a crown. And if you hold like that, let's just go back to Avram Menorah for 1 second. Menorah. So what the footnote wanted to say yesterday, now we can actually understand this. He said, so when we read this statement of Avram ben Rambam, that the Shisha Kanim, he says, Hakanim, Anafim Nimshachim Migufa Shal Menorah. These are branches that extend from the body of the menorah, Latzad Rosha Biyosher, to its head straight. Kamoshasir Osa Abba Marizal, like the Rambam, like his father explained it, lo be'igul, not with a curve. Kamoshasir Osa Zulaso, that not like a curve like what others depicted it. So we read it initially. Biyosher means straight branches and not curved branches. But the footnote of Moshe Maimon said it's possible to read it the other way, that it is. The candles are oriented in a straight manner, and they're not in a circular manner, and it's excluding Sadigon and Ibn Ezra, So it's hard to tell. Yeah.
Right. Not like
yeah, the Rambam's picture does not make it look like it's straight. Does not make it look like it is it's in a straight, like the lamps are straight.
That's why I'm saying it would seem that means that the branches are straight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I also just wanted to say, I looked into the Menorah thing a little bit more yesterday. Again, we're not going to go into it, but the main objections to saying that the branches were straight is that historically, like archaeologically, it seems like it's like unanimous that it was curved. Like all the depictions made of the menorah by people who would have seen it, like it's curved. And then the other argument is that even in the Rambam's diagram, someone had a good, sometimes like you don't know a field and like you don't know the vocabulary. So an article I read said that the Rambam never intended it to be a depiction of the menorah. He intended it to be a schematic. And I was like, oh, that's a good word. A schematic is not intended to pictorially represent it. It's showing the elements of it. And since the curvature and the straight branches is not in the halacha, then Ram didn't care to depict that correctly, but everything else is depicted correctly. Yeah. So I think. So whatever the Rambam held, and then someone tried to argue with me yesterday, or not argue, tried to suggest that even Rashi didn't hold that it was that it was straight. Rashi's the only other of the Mefarshim who says it's the branches are ba'alachson, and I thought alachson meant a diagonal, but he was saying maybe alachson could be learned differently. So yeah, so it's possible. I mean, it's possible no one holds that the branches are straight, except apparently Chabad is the one that popularized the view that the Rambam learns that it's straight and not curved, because that's how they make all their menorahs. Yeah, Oren?
Methodologically, where were these Rishonim getting their ideas about the menorah from? Like, they didn't have archaeological evidence, so what were they looking at to get their idea from?
So that's the mysterious thing, is like, if like where would they have gotten it from? Yeah, I mean, apparently there are no sources in the works of Chazal that like clearly say it. So I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So we're going to plan to do 2 issues today. The first issue is a question that was asked to me about one of the last halachos in Hilchos Chanukah, which is in Hilchos Chanukah, Megillah v'Chanukah, Perek Daled, halacha Yud Beis. Mitzvahs Ner Chanukah, mitzvah chavivah hi ad me'od. The mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is a very, how would you translate chavivah? Yeah, precious, endearing, or not endearing, beloved, right? Beloved, cherished mitzvah, very much. V'tzarech adam lihizaher ba, and a person needs to be careful with it. Kedei lahodia hanes ulahosif b'sheva hakel v'hodaya lo ahanisim she'asa. Hold on, I think there's a famous bad girsa here. Hold on. Where are bad girsa Rambams? Yeah, I think this is where it is. So what the actual girsa says is v'tzarech adam lihizaher ba, a person needs to be careful with it. Kedei lahodia hanes, in order to make known the nes, ulahosif b'sheva hakel, and to increase in the praise of God, v'hodaya lo ahanisim she'asa, over the miracles that he performed. And then
on the next sentence.
I think it's the one that I just read. Let's just see. I don't know. I could be mistaken. But in the regular Rambams, it says,
In the doofus.
Yeah, in the doofus. No, it's not here. No, it's not here. So it's somewhere else. I'm not gonna look for it now. Okay. Afilu ein lo ma yochal ela min tzedakah shoel o mocher ksuso v'lokeach shemen b'neros u'madlik. Even if a person doesn't have anything to eat, except for being supported by charity, shoel, he should borrow o mocher ksuso, or sell his garment, v'lokeach shemen b'neros u'madlik, and to buy oil and candles to light. Yeah, right. It is crazy. Yeah, usually I think the usual halacha. I don't remember what the usual halacha. We say that this and by kosos, right? By the arba kosos. Yeah. Arba kosos, you could understand it because that's an idea of cherus, of like making everyone,
Wouldn't you think that the license would be more?
You're right. Yeah, that is strange to be untaken by the right. It is crazy that they say that here. Yeah. Okay, so our question here is, what does he mean that the mitzvah ner Chanukah is chavivah hi ad ma'od? And the implication is that all these statements are related, right? Meaning that because it's chaviv, therefore you need to be careful with it, which is a question, what does that mean? Like, you need to be careful with all mitzvahs.
Well, I had a thought on the second point.
Okay.
Point.
Yeah, the second point meaning about the zahir or about the selling your stuff?
With zahir and
Yeah.
Right. Even if it doesn't have anything but
yeah.
Even though it's like and the fact that it's common, if you don't do that, then it's almost as if it's a halacha.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like it's a second like mitzvah, like it's a mitzvah that have you 5 minutes, and people think that you're not doing that, then that's like almost them.
Okay, so let me repeat that, because that's a good explanation here. So what Chaim is saying is that this is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and if you think about it, asterisk. I've always wanted to look into the question of, you have 3 levels of Ner Chanukah, of the basic level, then the Mahadran and Mahadran and Mahadran.
Right.
Historically, I wonder at what point it became standardized for all Jews to do the Mahadran and Mahadran.
Right.
But if you think about what the mitzvah is like on the basic level, it is a very easy mitzvah to feel like it's nothing, like, to just like light a candle, and in our society where Hanukkah is competing with Christmas and it's very popular, I don't know what the popularity of Hanukkah was, throughout the ages in different societies and stuff. So
apparently it was
right. So apparently, yeah.
I was just saying, I think, like I said, the menorah was the default Jew symbol, like before the Magen.
Well, the menorah was, but not Neros of Hanukkah. That's another question. When did the menorah start to be associated?
I was saying, I assume it's probably connected to Hanukkah.
Right, but is that the case in people's minds? Like that in other words, we have Chanukiot, right, that are like reminiscent of the menorah. But in order, first of all, you needed to have had a popularization of the Mahadran min Mahadran, and then you need a certain level of like, not wealth, but a certain level of like people doing more than just having like candles set up,
Yeah, fine. I guess maybe those are those certainly connected. I was assuming it's connected to, I guess, the Chashmonaim and that. So okay.
Right, but again, basic mitzvah is 1 candle. So anyway, what Chaim is saying basically is that even though it is a d'Rabbanan and it's a mitzvah that's easy to overlook or to downplay, The deoraisa aspect of it is lahodia hanes, is pirsum hanes, is publicizing the miracle and engaging in shevach and hoda to God on the nisim that he did. And remember, the real mitzvah of Hanukkah, according to what we learned last year, is halal. That's the essential mitzvah, and that definitely is a kiyum deoraisa of halal. So if you were to treat this mitzvah casually or to not be careful with it, then that really is like a degradation of hoda. It's like a what do you call the opposite of karsa tov? Is kfui tov. It's like a denial of the good. Yeah, that's a good approach. I like that. The approach I wanted to take, which I don't have an idea yet, but I thought it'd be interesting just to do a search in the Rambam for where he uses the term chaviv. First of all, to see if the claim is true. Okay, so in the Mishnah Torah.
Oh,
yeah,
I know. I'm
sure. Yes, I actually have that open right now. It looks like a lot of them are. It says Berutium, but a lot of the old ones are also Karutium. So
no, uncertain.
Uncertain, yeah, right. Exactly, yeah. Although someone did send me the article about like what that fruit might have been, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so in the Mishnah Torah, then here are the places where the Rambam uses it, and we're gonna not take into account all of it. Okay, so the first one is Yi kavat talmidecha chaviv alecha kashel chavirecha. I don't think we take that into account because that's talking about chaviv of kavod. Okay. Second one is to be mechaviv and ovid avodah zara. Okay, I think that's not related. Yeah. Chovav. Okay, that's definitely not related. Then there's in the bracha of tefillah, which is not from the Rambam. Okay, here we go. This one is related. Shvisas Yom Tov. Okay, so it says in Shvisas Yom Tov, this is talking about what you are and are not allowed to do. So this is about Isurim of measuring. This is in Shvisas Yom Tov Dalet Chaf. Keshehin mechalkin lo yishklu b'moznaim. When you're distributing meat, I think is what I had looked it up. You shouldn't distribute it. You shouldn't weigh it on scales. She'ein mashgichim b'kaf moznaim kol ikar. We don't do any scale weighing at all. Afilu litin bo basar l'shamro min ha'achbarim asar. Even to put meat on the scales to protect it from mice is asar. If the scales are hanging, because it looks like you're weighing it. The tabach uman asar lishkol biyado. This is an interesting one. A skilled butcher is asar for him to weigh it in his hand. Asar lishkol b'kli mali maim, and you can't weigh it in a vessel filled with water. Okay, v'ein matilin chalashim al hamanos. So I didn't know what this meant. According to Chabad.org, it means we don't. Actually, I'm just gonna look it up on Chabad.org. I didn't know what this was a reference to. Hold on. But this is where he brings in the chaviv thing. Shvisas Yom Tov Dalid 20. He says, we may not cast lots for portions of meat. We may, however, about matilin halashim al basar hakachim, but we can cast lots. I'm just going to rely on the fact that that's correct. For kachim meat, biyom tov on yom kedei lechaviv es hamitzvah, in order to make the mitzvah chaviv. Now that's not saying that the mitzvah is chaviv; it's saying to make it chaviv. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's one case, and I think there's only one more. Yeah, you are allowed to do with kachim. Yeah. Okay. Presumably also because that is an actual chepta shel mitzvah is butter of kachim, whereas just meat that you eat on Yom Tov, like it's a mitzvah to eat meat on Yom Tov, but you don't treat the meat that it has like chepta shel mitzvah. Okay, then there's our halach. Sorry, then there's chamitu matzah. This is the other one. This is the famous one. This famous one with the bad girsa. Asur chachamim lechol matzah be'erev Pesach. It is asur for the chachamim prohibited you to eat matzah on erev Pesach. Kadei shehu heker la'achilasa be'erev. In order that it should be to differentiate its eating at night. Someone who eats matzah on erev Pesach, then you strike him with rabbinic whiplashes, according to the doofus, until he dies. Okay, which is not what you should do, right? And until achetete nafsho, that's what the bad girsa says, until his soul departs from his body, which don't do that. It's also usher to eat on erev Pesach before mincha time, a little bit before mincha time, so that you enter into the eating of matzah with desire. You can eat some fruits and vegetables, but you can't fill your belly with them. V'chachamim harishonim, I forgot to say what halacha this is. This is Vav Yud Beis. V'chachamim harishonim hayu mar'ivin atzmam erev Pesach. The early sages would starve themselves on erev Pesach, kadesh lechol matzah b'tava, so that they would eat matzah with desire. V'yihiu mitzvos chavivin alav, and so the mitzvos would be chaviv to them. Okay, meaning again, dear, precious, whatever. But in other arvei yomim tovim, you can eat until it gets dark. Okay, so I think that's the last example. Let's just check. Then there's mitzvahs ner Hanukkah. Then there's this one actually is true. We read this one last week, which is when you are talking to someone who's converting, you talk about marichim. You talk about how God, maybe Aleim Rov Puranos Kadesh Lo Yovdu Akum Kalin Vehin Omdin. You basically talk about how God is going to preserve Klal Yisrael, and he says and you go on at length about this in order to make this dear to them. Not exactly the same phrase. Okay. Oh, then this last one. Sorry, there was one more. In Maseh HaKorbanos Dalad Gimel, it says, even though it is permissible to burn the what's the English term for emurim? The portions and the limbs from korbanos at night. In ma'achrin osan ladas, we don't intentionally delay them. Ella mishtadlin lahaktir hakol bayom. We strive to burn all of it during the day. Chavivah mitzvah b'shata. A mitzvah is chaviv in its time. Shahari hekter emurim ve'evarim, because the burning of the portions of the sacrificial animals and the limbs, afapi sheksherim b'layla, even though they are kosher to burn at night, dochin es Shabbos bismanan, they push aside Shabbos in their time. Ve'ein ma'achrin osan l'motzei Shabbos. We don't delay them to motzei Shabbos. In other words, you might make the argument. You might say, well, on Shabbos, maybe we should delay burning these portions of the meat until after Shabbos, so we don't have to burn things on Shabbos. They're saying, no, it's doche Shabbos. So you see how much God values, doing the mitzvah in its proper time. And I think that is it. All these other ones are not in regards to the mitzvahs. Yeah. So the question is, does that help us here? And I think really the Pesach and the kachim and the burning meat are the best things to go with. And the difference here, by the way, is here by Ner Hanukkah, he's not saying that we should be mechabev Ner Hanukkah. He's saying it is chaviv, right? Well, that's what I'm wondering, because it is describing the mitzvah as chaviv. Right, but I'm saying here he seems to be describing it already has the chaviv status, whereas these other mitzvahs you have to make them chaviv.
Right. Well, I'm saying that it's in the mitzvah that all mitzvahs should be chaviv.
Yeah.
Like this is like everything where you should make it chaviv special, like things special and then it has to not like.
Right. Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Right. Correct.
The other things is the other way around.
Right.
These mitzvahs are important, so you should make them chaviv.
Right. So the question though is then why does he need to tell you to be careful with it if it already is chaviv? Like, shouldn't people already be careful with it if it's chaviv? And the fact that
one day is not chaviv.
Okay, good. You could say that. Yeah, Oren.
It sounds just like he's saying that when something is chaviv, it just means that that we take joy in doing it. That it's just that people like to do it, and he's just saying descriptively that people like to do Hanukkah, and that certainly seems to be true, right? Like even today, the most assimilated Jews will. Hanukkah is like one of the only things that they'll do because they
but again, that's what I'm a little wary about saying about like taking the way that we see things now and then projecting them into the past in all societies, because I just don't know if that was the case.
I'm saying the Rambam thing that there's enough,
there is enough, right?
Not in apartment, you wouldn't have to be as careful as it work on it.
That was the way you wanted to read it, but there is another way to read it, which is mitzvah chavivah, mitzvah ner Hanukkah, mitzvah chavivah ad ma'od. Okay, that's one statement. Second statement, v'tzarech adam lihizaher ba kadei lahodia hanes ulahosif b'shevach hakel v'hodah la'al shnisim shasa. That obviously it's connected because it's in halacha, but not that it's a consequence of that. I'm not sure.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I'm not. I do like your shot, but it does bother me that if something is chaviv, you don't need to tell someone to be careful with it. And if you need to tell someone to be careful with it, then evidently it's not chaviv. Yeah, Oren?
I don't know. It doesn't bother me so much.
Not necessarily. I think possibly even the opposite. If people really like to do something, then they might be like kind of careless with it. Like the thing that you posted on the discussion chat with whatever that I forget who it was. Where like he really enjoys Hanukkah, but then he kind of lets he gets like, I don't know, I guess carried away.
There's a phrase that I think it's from Chazal. I don't think it's from the Tanakh, that ahava makalka es ashura, that love causes you to like blur the boundaries. That like when it comes to the love of the mitzvah, like you're so caught up in your love of the mitzvah that you don't pay attention to like how it should be done. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah. All right. Well, if anyone thinks of anything, then let me know. We're gonna transition now to a different topic. Okay, the next topic is also from Hilchos Chanukah, which is something I've never looked into, which is in the Rambam story about Hanukkah, which we did on Tuesday. He says in the first halacha of Perek Gimel, when he's talking about when Bnei Yisrael went back, hold on. He says, God had mercy on them and saved them. V'gavru b'nei Chashmonaim haKohanim haGedolim. The Chashmonaim, the great Kohanim, overpowered them and killed them, meaning the enemy. V'hoshiu Yisrael miyadam, and saved Israel from their hand. V'hamidu melach min haKohanim, and they set up a king from the Kohanim. V'chazra malchus l'Yisrael yasar al-masayim shanim ad korban hasheni. And the malchus returned to Israel for over 200 years until the second destruction. So I made the statement at that time that you're not supposed to appoint a king from the Kohanim, okay, and then that got us into a discussion which I think occurred more after Shir than during Shir, which is what does it even mean to appoint a king from the Kohanim?
It seems like until Alexander Yama, the Tzeduki, it seems like the Kordans, they were like call it like stick to calling to. Well, I don't think they even did the Greek words, and then I guess Alexander, it seems like he tried and then people objected. Mm-hmm. Also, just like looking, which also just like you say, the book of Bekius, which talks about, I guess, when Shimon just taking over, basically like, we should be ruled by the high priest. They also give him all the seem to give him symbols of monarchy and say they should basically rule us until
so I'm sure there's a lot of interesting historical stuff. I want to kind of focus on the halachos, and it is important to know what the history is, but I want to look at this from a halachic Rambam angle here. So it's been a long time since I looked into what does it mean to set up a king, and let's just do a quick overview of this. And I think you'll find that it's not necessarily problematic to make a Chashmonaim into a king. Okay.
I like it. Actually, Hashem has made non-based David's king.
But that's which one are you referring to? Which ones are you referring to?
Let's see, Rambam.
Okay, good. Right. So
Yehu.
Right. So the Rambam is going to address that. Okay. So let's first of all just go over the basic thing. This is in Sefer Shoftim, Hilchos Melachim, ומלחמות, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, and we're not going to read every word. We're just going to read the stuff about kings. Okay. Shalosh mitzvos nitzavu Yisrael b'shas knisas on the aretz. There were 3 mitzvos that Israel was commanded when they entered into the land. Limnos lahem melech, to appoint for themselves a king. Shneimar som tasim alech melech, you shall appoint a king upon yourself. Ulhakri zar shal amalek, to annihilate the offspring of Amalek. Shneimar timche ezechar Amalek, you shall wipe out the offspring of Amalek. V'livnos lahem beis havachira, shneimar l'shifno sidrushu uvasa shama. As it said, and to build a mikdash, a chosen house, as it is stated. His presence shall you seek, and you shall come there. Okay. Then he goes over what the order is here. I'm going to skip this. I'll read it. Minoi melech kodem lemilchamas Amalek. The appointment of a king comes before the war with Amalek. So these are interesting mitzvos, by the way, is that these are national mitzvos. Okay, it's not incumbent upon a single person to do them, and they're not just national; they are programmatic. Like there is an order to when we're supposed to do these.
Or at least there are various overtures of kingship to Gideon made, and I think he's like, what are the actually few Jews that actually fight Amalek, and that
I don't know. You know, that's my gap of knowledge.
Despite what the Torah says, there isn't actually that much fight with the Amalek, and Gideon's like one of the few times it happens that the Amalek gets in. Although now I think about it, it only mentions Gideon pushing out the Midianim, but never the Amalek, and that it says Midian and Amalek attacked.
Okay, let's not go through the whole secret shopping, please. Okay, Minui Melech Kodel Milchamos Amalek. Okay, the appointment of a king comes before the war of Amalek. Shneimar, as it says, Osi Shalach Hashem Limshochacha Lamelech. Hashem has sent me to appoint you as king. This is Shmuel talking to Shaul. The Ata Lefi Hikis as Amalek, and then afterwards he says, "Now go and strike Amalek." V'hachrasas zera Amalek kodemes l'binyan habayis. Okay, fine. And the annihilation of Amalek comes before building the base of Mikdash. Shneimar, as it says, "Vayhi ki yeshiv hamelech beveso." It will be when the king sits on in his house. V'Hashem hiniach lo misaviv, and Hashem gives you respite from all around, mikol yevav, from all of his enemies. V'yomer hamelech el nasan hanavi re'eh anochi yoshiv beveis arazim. Okay, fine. All right. Now he says like this: Mi'achar shehakamas hamelech mitzvah. So if sending up a king is a mitzvah, why did God not approve when they asked from a king from Shmuel? And I think I've heard people say this, and I think this actually is a machlokus, but like, does God approve of a kingship or not? And I've not looked into this. I've heard that this is a machlokus between the Rambam and the Abravanel about whether like having a king is like a b'diavad thing or like a lechatchila thing. Rambam definitely holds it is a lechatchila thing and it's a mitzvah. So he's addressing that question. Why did God disapprove of, when Klal Yisrael asked for a king? Lefisha shalu taromis, because they asked for it with shady reasons. However you want to translate taromis. V'lo shalu l'kaim hamitzvah. They did not ask for it to fulfill the mitzvah. Ela mipnei shekatzu b'Shmuel hanavi. It's because they were disgusted with Shmuel hanavi as the de facto ruler. Shneimar ki lo oscha ma'asu ki osi masu. For you they have not despised. It was me they have despised. Okay, now he starts going into the procedure. Okay, ein ma'amidin melech tchila ela alpi beis din shel shivim zakenim alpi navi. Now, when he says tchila, I don't know if he means initially. I think he means initially, meaning the first king that is appointed, we only appoint based on a Sanhedrin of 70 elders and a navi. Ki Yehoshua, like Yehoshua, sheminahu Moshe Rabbeinu ubeis dino, like who was appointed by Moshe and his beis din. Ukeshaul v'David shemina osam Shmuel haramasi ubeis dino, and like Shaul and David who were appointed by Shmuel haramasi and his beis din. So you see, by the way, Yehoshua is being called a king here. Okay, so that's already interesting. We're not going to go into these halachos because this is really a separate thing. We don't appoint a king from the congregation of converts, afilo achar kamadoros, even after many generations, until he has a Jewish mother. Okay, then he goes into you're also not allowed to appoint a ger for any position of authority or leadership, etc. That's a separate sugya. Okay, then halacha hey, ema midin isha b'malchus. We don't appoint a woman to the kingship. Shneimar melech v'lo malka. It says king, not a queen. Mishiyamos.
Mine is Mishimos.
Mishimos, yes, thank you. Mishimos should be Israel. Imamani behem ela ish. All of the appointments in Israel, we only appoint a man, right? That's the whole sugya of women and srara and authority. That's a whole nother sugya here, right? Fun fact: who was the only queen that we had?
Let's see. Actually, I
think the evil queen.
I'm also thinking of was it the sister of Shmuel and Shetach?
Okay, that I don't know. That I'd say in Tanakh.
I guess there's the one who I guess purchased most of his stuff. Then there was
so that's her. Right. So there's Atalia, the evil queen. So if you're into like Disney stuff, then like there's one evil queen that we had who tried to like wipe out the descendants of Malchus. It's a fun story. That story I do know because it's in Melachim base. Okay, fine. This is a point also. Okay. Next, okay.
Wait, if we're talking about Hanukkah, is that really so?
No, because we don't appoint, we don't set up a king or Kohen Gadol, lo gara v'lo safar v'lo balan v'lo bursi, meaning we don't. Wait, hold on. I think it means we don't appoint a king as one of these professions, as a gara or safar or balan or bursi. Lo mipnei she'en psulin elahoyel. No, maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me just double check the translation here. Meaning we don't appoint it. Is it the question is, do we don't appoint them as king, or we don't appoint? Yeah, hold on. Melchim 1. What halach is this?
Above.
Above. Okay. Oh yeah, you're. Oh wait, what? So he's saying we don't appoint them as king. Ima meaning melech v'lo kohen gadol, meaning we don't appoint to the positions of king or to the position of kohen gadol. Lo gar v'lo safar v'lo balam v'lo bursi. Neither a butcher, barber, bath attendant, nor a tanner. And he says, not because they're puzzle, but because their profession is like degraded, and the people will mistreat them, will degrade them. If you do this job for one day, then you're invalidated for being a king. Okay. All right, so now he talks about the actual procedure. Okay. When we appoint a king, we appoint him with the anointing oil. Shnemar, as it says, Shmuel took the jug of oil and he splashed it on his head, and he kissed him, right? By the way, if you want to see, I still think the best depiction I've ever seen to help me appreciate the concept of appointing a king is in The Crown, season 1, when they appoint Elizabeth, which is the most recent worldwide monarchy spectacle that, that like the world saw. I think, it's a really, really good depiction of it. Okay, once they appoint because they have the anointing oil there also. Once they appoint a king, he and his offspring merit it forever. Shal Malchus Yerushalayim, because kingship is an inheritance to them. Shnemar Laman Yarach Yamim Al Mamlachto Hubana B'Kerev Yisrael. As it says, in order that he prolong his days on the throne, he and his children in the midst of Israel. So monarchy is a dynastic thing in Judaism. It's not like, like most places in the world. It's not like this guy from this family, that guy from that family. It's passed on. Okay. Hiniach ben Katan. If the king died and he left behind a child who was a minor, mishamrin lo hamlucha ad sheyagdil, we guard the kingship for him until he grows up. Kamosha asa Yehoyada leYoash, like Yehoyada did for Yoash. V'chola kodem benachla kodem leYerushas hamlucha. Anyone who comes first in inheritance comes first for kingship. V'habein hagadol kodem lekatan mimeno. The older son takes precedence over the younger son. And yeah, there are exceptions to this, right?
What does that even mean? Like, if there are exceptions, then what's the rule?
Well, I'm saying that there were cases where, like, I think this was not followed. I don't remember offhand.
Okay,
but yeah.
Shlomo.
Right. Shlomo was not the first in line. Yeah. I don't know all the exceptions. V'lo malchus bilvad. Okay, this part is. Oh yeah, we go. You have lo malchus bilvad. Not only the kingship, ela kol hasraros v'kol minuim should be Israel. All positions of authority and all appointments in Israel, Yerusha libno u'leben beno ad olam, are inheritances for his son and the son of his son forever. Now, I don't know what that means, because earlier when he's talking about the what you're not allowed to appoint a ger over, he said you can't even appoint a ger as like a master over an irrigation ditch. I don't think that's is that an inheritance that's passed on like from generation to generation?
I can actually see that being passed on from generation to generation. I
mean, it is important, but any minui, I don't know how far that extends. But then he gives an important qualification. V'hu, this is provided, sheyi haben memali makom avosav b'chachma uvira. That's if the son takes over, takes after his fathers in chachma and in fear of God. If he takes after his father in Yira but not Chachma, then we put him, we let him take over his father's position. And we teach him, meaning we fill that gap in Chachma. Anyone who does not have fear of heaven, even though his Chachma is excessive, we don't appoint him over anything in Israel.
So it sounds like the Rambam approves of Chassid dynasties.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
okay.
And the Rambam himself started a dynasty, right? Is that he was the Nagid, and his and Avram and Rama took over, and then that passed itself down until they got kicked out of Egypt. Yeah. Okay, so that is for appointments in general. Now we get back to the Malchus. David, once David was anointed, Zacha Bekeser Malchus, then he married the king, the crown of Malchus, which we read in Hilchos Torah. And the Malchus belonged to him and to his male kasher sons for all eternity. Shneimar, as it says, Kisacha Yihye Nachon Adolam, your throne will be firm for all eternity. V'lo zacha ela l'ksherim, but only his kasher offspring inherited it. Shneimar im yishmeru banacha brisi, says, if your offspring will keep my covenant. Ava pishlo zacha ela l'ksherim, and even though it is only merited by the Ksherim, lo tikaras hamalchus mizera David olam, the kingship will not be cut off from the Zera David for all eternity. Hiftichu kadosh baruch hu b'kach, and God promised him in this. Shneimar, as it says, im ya'azvu banav barisi uv'mishpati lo yochon upakarti b'shevet pisham uv'negayim avonam v'chasadai lo asir mi'imo. I'm just going to cheat and read this in the English here. It says, if his children will forsake my Torah and cease walking in my statutes, I will punish their transgressions with a rod and their sins with plagues. Nevertheless, I will not utterly remove my grace from him. His throne shall be established forever. So it's saying that he can lose the kingship in specific generations, but not forever. Okay. All right. Now we get to our case. Okay. This is the case of the Chashmonaim. Yeah, Oren?
Does that apply for all of these dynasties, or only specifically for
only David?
Why?
Only the Davidic dynasty. Yeah, I don't know why. My memory is telling me that this has something to do with Yehuda, right? That this is in the brachos to Yehuda. I think. Let me just see. Oh wait. And I can't remember if this is in the brachos to Yehuda the person or to Yehuda the Shevet. Yeah.
Given that it could be assumed 100% that there's not even, I would say no real heavy, or actually, like, given that Hashem seems fine to remove most of the kingship from David, as he did historically.
Yeah.
Like, can you also include the Rish Gusas and also stuff in the sense that, like that,
right,
that
carrying on
kingship already, for the most part, only ruled the minority of the people of the sons of Israel.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Yeah, I think that does count because Rambam, even the Rambam emphasizes that they're descendants from the house of David. Yeah. So this is in the bracha to Yehuda in Bereshis Memtes Yud. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda umechokek mi bein raglav ad ki yavo shilav lo yikahas amim. Okay, maybe not. It says the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, and the mechokek. How do we translate mechokek here? Engraver, literally, but. The decree maker. Wait, well, how does Onkelos translate this? Lo yide aved shultan midves Yehuda v'safra mi bnei v'nohi ad alma ad yese meshicha de dilehi malchusa v'lesi shtamun amamaya. So, in other words, Yehuda is going to have the kingship until Mashiach comes. I think that that this has something to do with the David thing, but I'm not sure. And I think the psukim that Rambam quoted are going to have more about that, about the kisacha yiheh nachon ad olam. I don't know that to get very well, but to answer your question, Oren, it is only about David. Okay, now he talks about what about other shvatim. Navi shehev mid melech mishar shiftei Yisrael. Okay, a Navi that appointed a king from the other tribes of Israel. V'haya oso hamelech holech b'darchei Torah v'mitzvah, and that melech followed the ways of the Torah and mitzvah. The nilcham milchamas Hashem, and he waged the wars of Hashem. Harizeh melech. This is a valid king. And all the mitzvahs of the kingship apply to him. Even though the essential malchus is for David, and there should be and his offspring should be the king. Shahare Achia Hashiloni Hamid Yeravam. Achia Hashiloni, who was a Navi, appointed Yeravam, who was from Ephraim, I think. V'amar lo v'haya im shamoa tishma es kol asher etzavechka dat ubanisi lecha bais neman ka asher banisi leDavid avdi. He said to him when he appointed him as king, back when he was good, if you will listen to everything I command you, I will build for you a dynasty, an enduring house like I built for David, my servant. V'amar lo achia ulivno etain shevet echad. To your son I will give one tribe, Laman Heyos near LeDavid Avdi, Kolhem Lefanai Yerushalayim. I think that was a statement to Shlomo.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, meaning he basically let Shlomo. Wait, what pasuk was that? That was Lamed Vav.
What about kings not appointed by Navi, like Achav?
Hold on just a second. L'kakti melucha miyad beno. Yeah, so he's talking to hold on. To Shlomo, I think, and saying that he basically tore the malchus away from Shlomo, but he left v'lakachti melucha miyad beno nosti lecha eis aser shvatim. Sorry, this is talking to Yeravam. In other words, he's talking to Yeravam about Shlomo. I have taken the kingship from the hand of his son, meaning of Shlomo's son Rechavam, and I've given it to you. Is Aser Shvatim, the 10 tribes. Believe no, but to his son, to Shlomo's son, Etain Shevet Echad. I'll give him one Shevet. Laman Heyos near LaDavid, to be a near for David, Avdi, my servant, Kol Haimim Lefanav Yerushalayim Ha'ir Asher Bacharti Li Lasum Shmi Sham. Yeah, in other words, he left the base David scraps. So he's saying here a Navi can appoint a king from the other Shvatim, and he would be treated as a king. Okay. But he doesn't say what happens if the king is appointed not from a Navi, from other Shvatim. Yeah.
I guess like think of Achav.
Achav.
Or it's like his father who took the kingship in a unsanctioned good.
Right, correct. Malchei Beis David, Him Ha'omdim Le'olam. The kings of the house of David, they are the ones who will be in position forever. Shneimar Aziz, Kisacha Yiheh Nachon Adolam. That's the second time he's quoted that. Your throne will be firm forever. If a king arises from the rest of Israel, tifsok hamalchus mi beso, the kingship will cease from their house. Shari Yeravam nemar ach lo kol hayamin. For by Yeravam it says not for all the days.
Actually, I think so. The station just with base David, there's a promise at some point in the future, they'll come back.
And not just at some point into the future, but that Mashiach will be the enduring malchus from base David. I mean, it'll be restored forever. Not just like it'll happen one time. Yeah, Oren.
Sounds like he's saying that it will happen and that it can happen, but just that it'll be a temporary thing.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that is what they say about the Chashmonaim is that it was a kingship, but it ceased. And it ceased in a bloody way.
I mean, I feel a hard time saying based stuff is a more like I guess there is Mashiach in the future, but if you just look at pure history, it's not really more or less temporary.
Well, it is temporary in the sense that this is only a blip in the in the radar. It's just a long blip, but it's going to come back. All right. Ein moshchin malchi Yisrael b'shemen hamishcha ella b'shemen hafarsimon. We do not anoint kings of Israel with the anointing oil, rather with a farsimon oil. What's the farsimon in English? I always forget it. Persimmon, or am I just taking the word similarly? A farsimon. Okay, I don't know what a farsimon is. Ve'im manin osan b'Yushalayim lo'olam ela melech Yushalayim yizera David ve'im moshkin ba ela zera David. So we don't appoint them in Yerushalayim ever, except for a king of Yerushalayim from the offspring of David, and we only anoint the zera David. So in other words, I guess he's saying if there's a king over another part of Israel, we don't use the Shemen HaMishcha. We use the Sephardim oil.
As in non-Davidic kings.
Non-Davidic kings get anointed, but just not with the Shemen HaMishcha.
And they're not allowed to be anointed in Yerushalayim.
And not in Yerushalayim, yeah. Okay, last halacha, Kishmoshkin Malchei Beis David, when we anoint the Malchei Beis David, Ein Moshkin Osan Ela Al Hamayan, we only anoint him by a spring. Ve'ein Moshkin Melech Bo Ben Melech, we don't anoint a king who's the son of a king, Ela Im Kin Haisa Sham Machlokas, or milchama, unless there's a dispute over who gets the kingship or a milchama. So then we anoint him kedei lasalek hamachlokas, to remove the machlokas. Lefikach mashku Shlomo mipnei hamachlokas Adoniyahu v'Yoash mipnei Atalia u'mashku Yehoachaz mipnei Yehoyakim achiv. So those are cases where we did that. Yeah, so I don't know what we make about the Chashmonaim thing here, because first of all, it says, it's funny because it was not from a Navi, so it's definitely not in that category. And it says, Midu melach min Chashmonaim. They set up a king from the Chashmonaim, which the Ram doesn't really talk about that case in the laws of kingship. So I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, just try, so as in like non as in non-Navi pointing a non-based David.
Yeah, no, that's the case, right? Non-Navi pointing a non-based David. Yeah, Oren?
Why? What's the problem? It sounds to me like he approves, or whether maybe not approves, but that it's not usher. It's mutter.
Well, but here's my question. Navi shehemin melech mishar shivtei Israel. A Navi who appoints a king from the other tribes of Israel. V'haya oso melech holech b'darchei Torah v'mitzvah v'nilcham milchamas Hashem. And that king walks in the ways of Torah and mitzvah and wages the wars of Hashem. Hari zeh melech. That guy is a king. So it seems to imply you need two conditions. It needs to be from a melech and he needs to be following halacha. So if it's not a melech, if it's not from a Navi, sorry, did I say a melech? I meant if it's from a Navi and he's following Torah, then he's a melech. So if he's not following Torah, sounds like we don't treat him as a melech. And if it's not from a Navi, it also seems like we don't.
Also, just think like Gimel, like it doesn't say Gimel, but I guess my Gimel, which I think is your Daled.
Yeah.
But that it seems to be saying that you, like, so to start your dynasty, you need the Shivim, like.
But this is when he says in Mamid Melech Tchila, I think that means the first time it's
done.
But
the thing is, how can it mean that if you quotes the vote for Yoshua and David?
That's true. You're right. You're right. So I guess you're right. As if it's a new dynasty, right?
Well, it says you need.
Shivim came and a Navi, right? You need both.
Although question, although what's I guess it's still not one. I guess you're right. Question doesn't. Well, you need the guy, Lord Dictator of Israel forever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could say that, when the Rambam says that they set up a king from, it's funny, even though the lashon that the Rambam uses by Hilchos Chanukah, he doesn't say that they were Moshe HaMelech, just Ha'amidu, they set up a king. So I wonder if even he holds that was a legitimate king. Hard to tell.
Do we know that there was no Navi?
We don't know that there was no Navi, but it does seem like the last Naviim were Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi, and they died hundreds of years before.
Does the Navi need to be a rely of the time of the appointment?
What do you mean?
If there's a prophecy in Daniel,
I think it needs to be an actual Navi. Yeah.
Why not? Just say there's a prophecy in Daniel, so you have 3 points.
That's funny. Yeah. The only problem about that is that Rambam doesn't know that Daniel was a Navi. So, yeah. All right. If it's okay, I'm going to end a little bit early today. Yeah. So unknown, but it seems like the Rambam will not approve of this. All right. Have a happy rest of the Hanukkah, and let us plan to resume on next week, Monday or Tuesday, not Monday. Yeah. Because there's Hanukkah break. Yeah.
Okay.
All righty. See ya.
Thank you.
You're welcome.